The Alaska wilderness is different from the rest of the world. It is one of the last few places on Earth that have intact natural landscapes. This is why the National Park Service protects 95% of the land, accounting for 30% of the United States' entire wilderness. The 57 million acres of land include watersheds, glaciers, volcanoes, and rivers. One of the most scenic places in the state is Snowshoe Lake, located north of Glen Highway, 38 miles west of Glen Allen, Copper River Basin. Amongst the beautiful scenery and the picturesque pine trees decorating Snowshoe Lake, a most fearsome predator lurks in the shadows. The grizzly bear is one of the most dangerous creatures on Earth, and Alaska is its kingdom. Those who dare to experience the immaculate scenery of Snowshoe Lake should be willing to accept the possibility of encountering these menacing predators. During the 1950s, a man by the name of Lloyd Pennington and his friend Everett Kendall were out in the wilderness to hunt for these majestic and dangerous creatures. However, the two men became the unfortunate victims of a large grizzly bear gone insane, and instead were found dead. It was early April 1956. The typical Alaskan weather was approximately 40 degrees Fahrenheit, and there were only a couple of hours of daylight. It was the tail end of winter, and the northern lights could be viewed in the sky. Meanwhile, the vast landscape was peppered with enough snow that winter activities could still be done. Waiting for Lloyd at the runway was a small plane typically used in these types of reconnaissance. Lloyd was a simple man, a professional guide who loved to watch brown bears emerging from their long winter hibernation. He also loved hunting them. However, he didn't plan on doing so today. He was just scouting the area. The thick vegetation was quite hard to navigate through, so flying a plane across the landscape was the way to go. The sounds of the engine whizzed across the alluring Alaskan backcountry, disturbing the pine leaves swaying along the runway. Lloyd applied back pressure to the yoke, and the plane's nose began to rise as it sped through the dusty asphalt of the road. A few seconds later, the plane took off, taking Lloyd into the sky. He flew over the rich green forests outlining the hills and mountains. The various kinds of trees such as Sitka spruce, western hemlock, tamarack, white birch, and western red cedar moved back and forth in agreement with the early April winds. Reaching Snowshoe Lake, Lloyd's eyes scanned over the scrubs below. Suddenly, there in plain and perfect view, the 56-year-old professional guide found what he was looking for. It was a large grizzly bear approaching 8 feet in length. Although he was ways away from the ground, Lloyd could see the glistening, melting snow on the bear's fur as it had just finished hibernating. The bear got out of its large den, hidden amongst the undergrowth, and stretched out its massive paws. It paced toward nearby nutrient-rich vegetation, slowly revealed by the receding snow. Jackpot, Lloyd thought. This bear would be a suitable hunt for his friend and barber, Everett Kendall. The two hunted together in the past, and this would be Everett's 5th hunt with Lloyd. Remembering where the den was located, Lloyd went back to schedule the hunt for an upcoming day when Everett was free. Unbeknownst to him, this would be a grave mistake. A week had passed since Lloyd scouted the nearby area. He proceeded to contact Everett, who had long expressed his desire to bag a large game like this one. All the hunting trips they've done in the past would pale in comparison to this one. However, it didn't end well for these two, as we would later find out. After the two communicated, Everett set out and met with Lloyd over at Taslina Lodge, where they spent the night. Tomorrow morning was the day they both awaited. The air was cold, but there was no chance of rain. It was April 16, 1956, and Lloyd and Everett were out to hunt the massive bear. As the two walked toward the runway, they were greeted by a small plane. They checked everything necessary for the hunting trip: rifles, bags, and the minimum equipment needed to navigate through the cold and beautiful terrain. With everything in place, Lloyd taxied the plane into position and sped through the runway. With minor adjustments to the plane, a few clicks, and a bit of pressure on the yoke, the two hunters took off. The familiar sound of the engines echoed through the strips of Alaskan trees. They had seen everything before. However, Lloyd and Everett marveled once more at the gorgeous Alaskan wilderness sprinkled with sparse, receding snow. Unbeknownst to them, it would be the last time they'd see this sight. Up in the air, the two could see everything. They eventually reached the den, with Lloyd pointing below, mentioning to Everett where they'd find the unwitting bear. Lloyd steered the plane into the direction of the wind, landing near the familiar den among the scrubs on a hillside above Snowshoe Lake. The two disengaged their seatbelts, grabbed their rifles and binoculars, and disembarked on their hunt. With the plane's engines turned off, the sounds of the Alaskan wilderness permeated the atmosphere and engulfed Lloyd and Everett. The marvelous noise of the rivers, birds, and other animals encircled the two men. Marching up the sparsely iced trail, the two men kept a close eye on the hillside above them to prevent any potentially deadly encounters with predators other than the bear they were hunting. They huffed and puffed the cold air, reeling from the exhaustion of climbing the few hundred feet trail. Every now and again they would pause and appreciate the sacred scenery. However, they stopped themselves from being distracted and made their way to the entrance of the den where the bear was still residing. The two camped out and began to pick up sticks in the area, planning on prodding the newly emerged bear. Coming out of hibernation, the creature was supposed to be bewildered, hungry, and easy to hunt. Although this was a tradition done by hunters in the past, it was a deadly undertaking. Death often comes to the uninitiated. Unwittingly, Lloyd and Everett were dancing with death. Waiting by the nearby tree, the two men shared a smoke while planning their move, how they would shoot the bear and the best way to recover the body. Grabbing long sticks from the surrounding area, the two prodded around the den, literally poking the bear. The plan was to shoot the creature once it emerged from the entrance. As Lloyd and Everett continued to poke around the den, they eventually heard a sound. However, there was no time for the two to be optimistic. The plan was supposed to work, assuming the bear was weary and slow-moving. Unfortunately, what came out of that hellish entrance was anything but that. Without warning, the massive creature made its way toward the entrance and a few feet from Everett. In a blink of an eye, the two men were face to face with death. Everett scrambled in panic and began unloading his rifle toward the creature. However, 5 hunting trips built in him a false sense of confidence. All the shots missed, and the bear was raging towards him. The bear swatted at the rifle and grabbed hold of Everett's shoulders. The bear's massive jaws bit down on Everett's head, pinning him with its weight. The leaves on the ground sprang up into the air as the commotion worsened. Everett's screams echoed through the silent Alaskan wilderness, a place where nobody could find them. Lloyd scrambled for his rifle, attempting to shoot the creature while Everett was mercilessly mauled. He took away his sight from the bear for a while, focusing on adjusting the gun's safety lock. However, before he could point and unload, the creature was already gazing at him. Lloyd froze in terror and despair. For a split second, he could see Everett's lifeless body underneath the bear's paws. The creature's claws were red, painting the ground with Everett's blood. In a blink of an eye, the few meters of distance between Lloyd and the bear disappeared. The massive predator grabbed hold of Lloyd's leg and bit him repeatedly. The sharp canines tore into his flesh, cutting his muscles and joints like a hot knife through butter. The bear knocked Lloyd down, exposing him to more danger. All Lloyd could do at this point was protect his face by raising his arms. However, this was pointless, as the bear bit into his forearms and tore them to shreds. In one swift motion, the bear reached for Lloyd's neck and gnawed at his throat and head. Lloyd became lifeless in just a matter of seconds. The two hunters became the hunted. The two men disappearing initiated a search. A bush pilot spotted their bodies and reported the incident to authorities in Anchorage. Consequently, 10 heavily armed hunters were deployed in the area to find the culprit bear, following closely the trail that Lloyd and Everett walked through. The hunters cornered the bear and shot it to death. Lloyd and Everett's bodies strewed near the den's entrance. The ground around them was torn from the commotion. It was unfortunate that the two men died from something that could have been prevented. The bear also had to suffer, even though it was just protecting itself and acting according to its nature. The two men found exactly what they were looking for that day, but the tables were turned. They were ripped apart by a ferocious bear. It had come out victorious against two armed men with guns trying to kill it in his den, only to spark revenge on the bear, bringing it to its tragic final affliction.